Can you hear me all right? Because I keep breaking up.
No, that's just the start of music. It always does that, I think.
Welcome back to another video. I hope you're all keeping safe and well. I've got three special guests for this Spurs Chat video. I've got Rolf all the way from Los Angeles Spurs. I've got Gary, a regular on this channel. And of course, David Bisco, a regular on this channel as well. Welcome to all three of you. Rolf, let's start with you. You are the co-founder of the Los Angeles Spurs. How is it over there? How is the feeling about Tottenham Hotspur over in America?
Well, I can only really probably speak for Los Angeles or our group here. Obviously, it's been a difficult year with COVID and various other things, but I think there was a lot of disappointment with the League Cup performance. I know you've spoken about that prestigiously, but we just didn't show up for that game. But fortunately, with the win against Sheffield United, which was pretty emphatic, I think that gave us some encouragement for the games to come. And if we have a similar lineup of team members and philosophy, I think we probably can do well. And I think that would probably echo what most people are thinking here.
Rob, how did you get into supporting Spurs in the first place? Taking you all the way back.
Yes, I started in when I was, well, probably 6, 7, 8 years old. And this is mentioned in several books, book by Chris Jones. Also another book by, from the Trust, Martin Cloak, Fisher, they wrote a book and I'm mentioned in there as well. But I had a teacher in England called Andrew Silcox, who lives with his wife in France now. And he was probably the biggest influence for me to get in. And he took me to my first Spurs game on my birthday, May the 8th, which is the game that's coming up now. So we'll be going full circle. And that was against Spurs Liverpool in 1974. 1-1. Chris McGrath scored for Tottenham, scored first. And after that day, I mean, I was a sort of Spurs fan before that, but once I'd gone to the stadium and been there, your life has changed forever, as you know. And it's been a wonderful journey.
I love it. I love it how you come out with the goal scorers, though, Ralph, because it's funny, isn't it? Your first game, you never, ever forget. Gary, let's come to you. Your first game at White Hart Lane, can you remember it?
Oh, God, do you know what? My granddad brought me to a game. I mean, I know I was at the, I was so young though, but I was actually I was lucky enough to be at the UEFA Cup final in '84. So, but I would have been, how old was I there? I think I was 6 or 7. And then after that, I used to go home and away with friends, not even family, just friends from the area. And then it kind of really went from there. And then it was growing up with watching a lot of Hoddle and Waddle and obviously the whole Gazamania. And then fast forward to obviously, I was at the '87 Cup final. We know how that ended. And then I was back at the. I mean, I always say this. I was talking about it earlier on the Spurs page. I was at the '91 Cup final, but the one for me that I was at was the semi-final. I mean, it was better than winning the actual FA Cup, beating Arsenal the way that we, not just beating them, but the way that we beat them. And then it's just been, as the years go on. I'm not a season ticket holder like you, Chris, but I get to go quite a lot. As a member, and I do a lot of VIPs, and it's just basically from there. So, and a lot of memories. I don't know if there's more good than bad, to be honest with you. It's a mixed bag, really, being a Tottenham fan, isn't it? It doesn't come easy, but it is what it is, and it's in your blood, isn't it? So, love or hate them, we're stuck with them forever.
Gary, I love to introduce my guests fully and give a little bit of background about what they do. I couldn't believe the other day when I clicked onto your Instagram and saw that you're actually part of the Dream Boys. Tell us a little bit about that.
Did you not know that, Chris? I thought you knew that.
I didn't know that. No.
Yeah. So basically, stripping for me was something I got into by complete chance. An old friend of mine now approached me in the gym and asked me what I did for a job. And at the time, I was a lorry driver. And he said to me, "Do you fancy being a stripper?" And I was like, "What, a paint stripper?" And he was like, "No, like, take your clothes off." And I went, "Men don't do that, it's just women." And he was like, "No, it's men do it, And then obviously you had the full Monty and stuff like that. And then it went from there. And for a long period of time, I was traveling all over the UK. I've been abroad, organising ladies' night shows. I've got more drag queens and male strippers in my phone book than girls. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. And then fast forward, and then obviously Magic Mike appeared, and then I'm part of the Dream Boys, and I do that. Well, I say I do that. I haven't done it for over 1.5 years at the moment, obviously with the pandemic and COVID. But I do the resident show in London. every Saturday night. So yeah, it's very different to talking on your channel, but I love both of them. But we tend to keep our clothes on this.
Wow. David, welcome back to the channel. Nice to have you on again. How are you feeling as a Tottenham Hotspur fan right now?
Oh, bit dejected. Bit of the same old, really, isn't it? I mean, I was like you. I was neither Joe say in or Joe say out, because you just know that it's like a 2-year cycle with us, and you just know that, you know, whoever we get in, whether it be Coutinho or Conte or anybody else or Sarri, it's just never going to get any success. And it annoys me because people seem to think they've got this misconception that backing a manager means spending money, and for me, backing a manager means having faith and trusting their judgment on players that they don't want, and then selling them for them, and the players that they do want, and bring them in nice and early. But we just don't. We know that Daniel Levy isn't like that, so it doesn't matter whoever we get. I just think we're going to go through this cycle all over again. Yeah. So yes, very dejected. Yeah, and all the rumours. I mean, you're seeing all these now that Kane, you know, Teddy Sheringham saying, "Oh, Kane should go to Man United." I don't think. I would like to think Daniel Levy wouldn't let him go to a Premier League rival. You know, why strengthen another team that you're trying to sort of match and weaken yourself at the same time? It just doesn't make sense. And I think, wasn't it after Sheringham went, he said, "I will never deal with Manchester United again." So I can't see him going there. City is a possibility, but I've seen people touting, "Oh, he'll go to Chelsea or he'll go to Arsenal," and I definitely won't do that.
Never.
Liverpool maybe, but.
We will come on to that subject, David, later on in the video. We will talk about players, and we will certainly talk about
whether you feel it go to one of the Premier League clubs. No.
We'll discuss that.
And you think like Kane is a Spurs boy, and there's no way he would go.
No, he wouldn't go Chelsea or Arsenal, not in a million years. That wouldn't happen, you know. He's not a Sol Campbell. So I don't see Kane. Kane's got more morals and principles than old Sol Campbell, so I don't think we need to
breaking up a bit. But yeah, I get you.
Rolf, let's come to you. Now, Ryan Mason, he's managed 2 Premier League games for Spurs so far, and we have won both of them, beating Southampton 2-1 at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and then, of course, our last result, beating Sheffield United 4-0. What have you made of Ryan Mason's time so far?
Well, first of all, it was an interesting selection, and just as chance would have it, I watched his training session this morning with Spurs. And I was quite impressed, actually, at his techniques and the way he was approaching things. Certainly for Southampton and Sheffield, obviously his choices were correct in the way he put the team together. I think the first half of the Southampton game, Spurs were a bit tentative, but then all of a sudden it switched into what I call AKA old Pochettino mode, where we just went for it. And certainly that seemed to be the game plan with Sheffield. Naturally, they're at the bottom of the league, but still that was similar kind of concept. I don't know what happened with the League Cup. He sort of regressed and did something totally different, especially when Spurs were desperate to try and get something. So I think it will be very telling when we play Leeds, who are an attacking team as well, just to see how his philosophy and approach will be. Is he going to keep the same thing? Is he going to have Bale on early? Is he going to maybe have Dele Alli on early? Because both of those players need time on the field. You can't bring them on at the end of the game and expect suddenly it's just going to change. It's not a Hail Mary, as the Americans would say. It's, you know, they need to be on the field ahead of time, need creativity. And you know, are they going to attack, or are we going to suddenly see something else? So I think this third game will really show where Ryan Mason is in his journey.
Yeah.
Rolf, take us, you know, explain to a lot of the people in the UK, you know, you're in Los Angeles, you know, yes. You guys get up at ridiculous hours sometimes when these kickoff times are
4:30 this weekend on Saturday. The kickoff is, yeah.
So when the team don't perform, you must be really, really gutted.
Well, being a Spurs fan for as long as I have, that has not necessarily been unusual. We've been very fortunate in the last few years to have seen a Tottenham that's performed at top levels. I mean, we've had cycles, you know, the early 60s, and then, you know, a bit of the late 60s, early 70s, and then the early 80s, around 1990. So we've had these sort of cycles which have shown promise and excitement, and then we've had many periods of what I call being in trough or low, you know, lower in the league. So yes, I think people are gutted and they're tired, but we enjoy getting together. I mean, we have a great camaraderie. When I first started with the group, it was just Graham, Crazy Graham, and me, and that was back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Now we're, you know, even with COVID, we had over 150 at the final at the Red Lion. Incredible prize. It's the amount of people. When we had the Champions League final in 2018, we had about over 1,000 people at 4 different bars and various places on Figueroa in Los Angeles. I mean, we shut the place down, lines at 7 o'clock in the morning. So that's how far we've come, when thinking there might be 1 or 2 Spurs fans in Los Angeles to, you know, over 1,000. I mean, it's incredible. So yes, we get disappointed and maybe a bit upset, to answer your question, but we love seeing each other, great camaraderie, and we enjoy getting together.
Gary, let's come to you. Dominic writes on the screen now. Let's face it, Ryan Mason doesn't have the experience to manage a club the size of Spurs. Shepherd then writes, give Mason the job. We all know he's not the problem. How do you feel about Ryan Mason taking the job? If Spurs win their 4 remaining Premier League games, that would be 6 out of 6 for Ryan Mason. Does he deserve to get the job if that happens?
It's a difficult one, Chris, because I was thinking about this in my mind beforehand. You know, I think the League Cup would have made a big difference as well. But let's just say hypothetically, if we win our remaining games and we got top 4, let's just say, I mean, you can't not offer him the job, and Levy would be rubbing his hands, because Levy would be thinking, I'm saving a fortune here, and he'd let Ryan Mason have a go. But I mean, it's a difficult one, because there's nothing to say. We've had the biggest manager in world history. He's won everything, and he, you know, it was an absolute nightmare. So, to be honest with you, appointing Ryan Mason wouldn't be a bad thing if we got top 4. I think if we don't get top 4 and we finish 6 like I predicted, I can't see him getting the job. I would like to see a bigger manager. I mean, the guy I'd probably like is Conte, only because I think, you know, he's been at Chelsea. I know it's another ex-Chelsea manager and people will have opinion on it, but my opinion is, look, you know, I mean, he won the Premier League. I think he then won in the FA Cup and then they sacked him. I mean, if he won the Premier League with Tottenham, we'd have him until he's 110, wouldn't we? So, you know, for me personally, I just think when you've sacked someone like Mourinho, if we don't get top 4, I don't think you can give Ryan Mason the job. I think it has to go to a fairly big name in order to attract players and players to play under him. That's my opinion. But with Daniel Levy and with the remaining games, I think it's going to fall to the last game of the season, if I'm honest, Leicester away. And that will really see where we finish and what. But the thing is, Chris, as you know, Daniel Levy loves to save a few quid. And I mean, if we finish top 4, I don't even think it's a question. I think Ryan Mason gets the job, because he's in the Champions League and then he saves a fortune. You know, that's how I see it. But again, I can't see us getting top 4, so I think we've got to bring a bigger manager in, and I don't think Ryan Mason is the man for the job, personally. So
I know David's shaking his head here, and David, I completely agree with you. I think that we need a good, experienced manager to come in.
Yeah,
but
yeah, I think it could really do with him, shouldn't it?
Sorry,
you know, it could kill his career before he started. I mean, you know, he's going to be stuck with the same, and we'll be stuck with Harry Winks, because we know he likes Harry Winks.
Yeah.
And you know, Jamie Carragher called. I know he was harsh after the cup final, but he called Winks out and said he's a coward. He didn't take responsibility, and that's I've always said that about him. He always picks the pass back and then points to another player he could have passed to himself. Yeah, and that's frustrating. And I think, to be honest, Ryan Mason being young, you know, even if he gets us top 4, you know, those same players will end up letting him down, the same as they let Poch down and they let Mourinho down. And the strange thing is that I found and been thinking about a lot, Pochettino's last January was when our form really went downhill and we were struggling to win games, despite being in Champions League. Yeah. And it was January, you know, in December, we were top of the table. January, we go, the players go flat again.
Yeah.
Is it because they're expecting new fresh faces and fresh legs, and they, they just, I can just imagine Harry Kane thinking, yeah, what we're going to do now, we're top, what we're going to do to stay there, and then you get to January and nobody's come in, and you're like, well, what the fuck, like, excuse my French.
David, out of all of the names that you're seeing, though, who excites you? Because I'm failing to get excited by all of these names that we keep being linked with.
Yeah, same here. Benitez, I think. What do we want Benitez? But he's a winner. Conte's a winner. But yeah, I'm like you. I'm just not. I think it's more because you know what's coming. Whoever we get, it doesn't matter. No. We could get Pep Guardiola, and you just know that he's not going to get the players that he wants and requires. Yeah. And people said to me before, "Oh, Mourinho was backed. He spent money and all this." I said he did. I said, "Look at the players that he bought that haven't played." I said, "They're Daniel Levy signings. They're club signings. Yeah. We wanted a striker, backup striker. Vinicius hardly played."
Yeah.
Doc, I can't see a manager with the experience of Jose knowing how Doherty plays in that role and then saying, "I'm just going to have him in a back four." I just cannot see an experienced manager do that. No. So yeah, it's a mystery, and yeah, I can't get excited even. I mean, it's the audacity as well of, you can see why other clubs dislike us so much. Sack the manager, and then like if you imagine you're a Leicester fan, who does Tottenham think they are? Daniel Levy's coming to speak to Brendan Rodgers.
Yeah.
In the Champions League.
Yeah.
It's almost like he thinks that people are going to queue up for the job. No. And he's found it difficult now, I think, unless he has got someone and we don't know yet.
Yeah, he could have someone. That's the thing, I mean, everyone was certain it was Nagelsmann, but maybe it was never going to be Nagelsmann, and maybe the manager's sitting and waiting. I don't know, but I mean,
Harry Redknapp seemed to think that he's got someone. He said that's how he always operates, doesn't he? But
yeah, I mean, it's very unusual for him to sack a manager and not have someone, in place.
Yeah.
But is that manager that he's got still in another team at the moment? And you wait until the end of the season or summer? I don't know.
There's a couple things there. I think first of all, he thought he might be in the Super League and he'd have all this money to spend.
Yeah, that's right. Super League.
Obviously, doesn't have now.
Yeah.
And really, Spurs got lucky that Roma picked him up so quickly, so they won't have to spend, 13 mil paying him off. But it's really an issue of whether or not what Mr. Levy, Daniel Levy, will allow. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. Just that's the reality, because we've had more managers come to Spurs than any other club, pretty much in the Premier League, and nobody ever seems to be allowed to bring the project to fruition. Pochettino got the closest, but no new players. He knew that there changes need to be made, and he just wasn't allowed to do it. There's another move. Someone else will come in. On a personal level, and many of the LA Spurs would disagree with me, so I'm not speaking for them on this one. I've always liked the Wolves manager.
Yeah, Nuno, yeah.
Oh, Nuno.
I think he would do well at Tottenham, but once again, you've still got the same rest of the structure there. But I've always liked his approach. I know Wolves haven't done so well this season, but overall, I just like his approach. But that's just my opinion on on that. So.
Ralph, what kind of manager do you think Tottenham go for next, though? Because when you think back, Maurizio Pochettino took us to a Champions League final. He made all of us Tottenham fans believe, sadly, didn't quite get us over that line. Then Daniel Levy goes out and gets the very, very experienced, very, won everything in the game, Jose Mourinho. Who do you go for next? Because when I see the names like, no disrespect to Ryan Mason, Graham Potter, people like this, but it just seemed like a huge come down.
Well, as you mentioned, or the rest of the group here mentioned, nobody's really rushing to go to Spurs unless they're sort of maybe trying to move up the ladder in their career, because it's a poison chalice. They don't know how long they'll be able to last. They don't know what they're going to be able to do. To me, it would be extremely. You saw Ajax. He made sure he signed on there and went somewhere else. All these so-called top guys are giving it a wide berth, and Tottenham's in a big problem trying to attract someone that it was all right after Pochettino, because Pochettino had been there a long time. All right, fine, and we thought we might see Mourinho for a bit longer. But the same issues are facing whoever comes in. Aging squad. What kind of money is going to be spent? What reigns are going to be allowed? And so you know, whether it's Ryan Mason, you know, might do a better job than some of these other people and cost a lot less. So that's the question. Yes, we probably do need a more experienced manager, but is that experienced manager really going to be able to do what's needed to be done here? And in my opinion, I think there's a number of people that need to be encouraged to leave for other clubs. They've done well. That's it. You know, time to make a revamp, and that costs, as you know. So it's a difficult prospect.
Gary, let's come to you now. Of course, Mauricio Pochettino has gone to PSG, got knocked out of the Champions League by Manchester City. If they don't win the French league, will Pochettino get the sack? Will that be perfect timing for Spurs? Will it be perfect timing for Daniel Levy to put, you know, something right amongst the fans and then go and get the fans' favourite Pochettino back?
But do you know what? I think the thing with Pochettino, with me, it's a bit like a breakup. When you break up with someone, you tend to remember the good things. But, you know, it got bad with Pochettino near the end. Don't get me wrong. We got to a Champions League final and everything else. But our league form was horrendous. And some of our away performances were awful. And I just think to myself, is that going back? You know, all right, you know, Pochettino gets sacked. We take Pochettino back. Does the same thing happen? Or this time, does Daniel Levy go, look, Poch, I'm sorry for what happened last time around. There's 350 million. Build the team, do what you need to do. If he brings Pochettino back and gives him 3.5 million, you know, 350 million, sorry, not 3.5 million, then maybe that's the right call. But if he brings Pochettino back and we have the same Pochettino as we had last time, where, let's face it, we somehow fluked ourselves to the Champions League final. I mean, admittedly, we should have won it because Liverpool were awful, but opponent in the first minute, you don't have much hope. But in the league, we were terrible in the league, Chris. You know, you remember it well. I mean, we went, how long did we go? 10, 11 months without winning away, and some of our performances were horrendous. So for me, I just don't know if going back to an old manager is the way forward. Yes, if Pochettino gets a sack and Daniel Levy goes, there's 350 million, Poch. I'm sorry, should never appointed Mourinho. It was a mistake. Crack on. I'd say happy days. But if you bring back Poch or you brought Conte and Daniel Levy goes, there you go, mate. You've got 5 million. Let that last you the year. Are we going to do any better? Don't think we are.
No.
You know,
but I think with Poch though is you know, when you're saying you lose him, he was going on about the rebuild then, wasn't he? And he was saying,
yeah,
we need to, and obviously as soon as he'd opened his mouth, same with Harry Redknapp when he moaned and said that, you know, he didn't get the players he wanted, bang, he's out the door.
Yeah, you're right, because Poch, what did Poch say? He said something about, well, I'm not the manager, or I'm not the coach. I don't make the decisions. And you know, his whole body language in his face, he'd had enough. He just was like, you know, I've had enough. Would Poch want to come back?
He did say that he there was what was it? He would like to come back one day and finish off what he started. But I think didn't Glenn Hoddle say that as well?
Yeah, I can see Pochettino coming back. But I tell you what, Gary, I think you were right with the 3.5 million in the first place. What you said.
Yes.
David, let's come to you now. One player that keeps being named now is Graham Potter. Your thoughts on Graham Potter?
I think as I don't know if it's Gary or Ralph said that it's like a massive step down. Yeah. So no, I don't really.
No.
You know, it's out of our hands anyway. But you're getting a manager from a team that's struggling, and then giving him a bigger team and saying, "Yeah, do something with them." I don't know. It's not something that inspired me to want to go to a game.
Yeah, it doesn't feel right when you say, you know, Graham Potter and the likes of these managers. It just doesn't. And it's not that we, you know, I don't think as a fan or we're bigger than what we are. And, you know, we deserve, I don't know, less than manager, whoever. It's not that. I just think, God, Graham Potter, I know. And Scott Parker, look, I love Scott Parker, but really, Scott Parker, you know, these sort of managers, and you've just sacked Jose Mourinho, and you're not going to give them any money. I mean, no. You know, I mean, we need someone that can perform miracles, don't we? With the budget he's going to have. And I don't think Graham Potter or Scott Parker's
Harry Potter might have some luck if he waves his wand about.
Oh dear.
David, I want to come back to you now. Jose Mourinho, just 15 days after being sacked by Spurs, appointed AS Roma boss, taking charge. The start of next season. Were you surprised by that appointment?
I don't. No, not really. I knew it came quicker than I thought. But I thought that, come summer, he'd be, they'd be saying, "Oh, we've just announced." So I didn't expect them to announce it so quick.
Yeah.
But I find it's just the level of stupidity. They're going. I've seen reports now that he wants to take Eric Dyer and Højbjerg.
Yeah.
And he wants to put a bid in for them in the summer. I'm like, we've just got Højbjerg. Why as if we're going to sell him?
Yeah, no chance.
So where these rumours come from, but no, definitely, I wasn't surprised that he got the job. He was going to go. I thought I was expecting maybe PSG or something like that if Poch got sacked. But
do you know
no,
what though,
not
David?
at all.
Pierre
he
was one of Jose Mourinho's leaders on the pitch, though, wasn't he? He's been outstanding for us this season.
He was, yeah, definitely one of the shining lights. Really, he's had a couple of poor games, hasn't he?
Yeah, one or two. Yeah.
I don't think he was brilliant against. Well, definitely in the cup he wasn't. In the cup final he wasn't. And I think in was it Southampton? I think he a couple of stray passes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, for someone who's played as many games as he has, and put himself about the way he does, when he doesn't, it doesn't bother me if he gives the ball away. Occasionally, it's the players that do it consistently, like the Auriers and that really irk me, because you think the basic thing of pass and move, and you can't even do that. You sort of pass and stand there. I mean, one of the goals that City scored, he didn't track back, did he? He stayed up.
Yeah.
Aurier.
No.
And you think I don't know. It's without. I'll tell you what, he would be a huge loss if he did go. We would
all jokes aside, David, do you think that Jose will come in for any of our players?
I think he probably would. Yeah, it was a sort of sideswipe at Daniel Levy.
Doubt it'll be Dele Alli.
Yeah, I don't know whether he'll get any of. I could see Dyer going, to be honest.
Yeah.
I could see Dyer, but I'd be very surprised if Daniel Levy said, "Yeah, let Højbjerg go." But
I'd drive Harry Winks and Sanchez in the car for him. I'd take them all the way to Roma.
Oh yeah, Sanchez
is another one. He's just another one of those that doesn't. Yeah. There's nobody on there that. Oh, sorry, go.
Yeah, good. Rolf, let's come to you now. Another manager that keeps being linked with us, and that's Brendan Rodgers, of course, the Leicester City boss. He's come out and said that he's happy where he is. But can you see Brendan Rodgers coming to Spurs? Will money talk in the summer?
Well, money always talks, I'm afraid. This is the world that we live in. Yeah, I mean, for Brendan Rodgers, once again, I said this before, I think it's a poison chalice going to Tottenham. I mean, I love the team, but any manager that comes there, I mean, he had a long tenure at Liverpool, and I think he did pretty well. Did well at Celtic. Yeah. Anybody that comes in, they have to have a decent tenure. You can't have this sort of 6 months, 7, year, whatever, and think you're going to work wonders. It just doesn't happen that way. I mean, if we look back just a little way at Alex Ferguson in the early part of his career with Manchester United, they didn't do very well. Okay, but they kept the faith, and he became the most successful Premier League manager. So it's really an issue of, are you prepared to hang in there? I know we've got the stadium to pay off and all the bits and pieces, but it's a rebuild. And Brendan is a person, I think he's steady. I think he's good with what he has. He's encouraging. He's somewhat of a disciplinarian, which I don't think is particularly bad for young players. And I think he can do something. But is he really want to go and move and take away this wonderful program he set up at Leicester? He's got a very good scouting program. I mean, Leicester's a very balanced team. That's one thing I like about when I watch them. When they play Spurs, the way that they move forward together, came back very balanced. And I know they've had a few injuries lately, which is troubling them a bit. But I'm very impressed with what he's done there. He could do that at Spurs, but I think he needs to have the time and the inclination of Daniel Levy to accept that. And I'm just not sure if that will work.
Gary, let's come to you. Thoughts on Brendan Rodgers? Because I must say, out of all these names that keep, coming out, Spurs keep being linked with them, I think that this one would be my first choice. What about you?
Yeah, it would be my first choice. But, I was thinking this over in my mind, and I think to myself, if you're Brendan Rodgers, apart from the obvious, they've got Champions League football, they're in the FA Cup final. So you have to ask yourself the question, what would make him leave and come to Tottenham? Okay, one, it would be the money. Two, if we secure Champions League ourselves, would he be more likely to leave Leicester and come to Tottenham? Probably, I think, in my mind. But the chances of us getting Champions League football and Leicester not getting Champions League football is, the odds are not good. So for me, in my mind, does it make a difference whether they win the FA Cup or not? Probably not. So I think the only way, this is just my opinion, thinking, to myself, for Brendan Rodgers to leave Leicester and to come to Tottenham, it would definitely mean Tottenham would need to get Champions League football this season, which is very unlikely. And Leicester either to or not get Champions League football. I don't think the FA Cup matters. But honestly, Chris, can you see Tottenham getting Champions League football and Leicester not? Or I can't see it happening, if I'm honest, mate. I really can't. He's got it settled there. He's got it good. Like Rolf said, money talks. If Daniel Levy got the checkbook out and offered him enough, but are you going to leave a team where he's so settled and got all the players playing for him? He's guaranteed Champions League football, the end of the season is there. He's in an FA Cup final. I don't really think that matters if they win or lose it. So me personally, I can't see us getting Brendan Rodgers. Not now. In a year or two, possibly. But it would mean Leicester doing worse than us in the league. And then I think we could get him. But at this precise moment, I can't see it.
Sorry, I thought I cut out there. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. So
David, what are your thoughts on Brendan Rodgers?
Yeah, I'm like you. He would be my first choice, but I could just imagine the conversation with Daniel Levy. Come to us, we'll give you more money, and it'll only be short term. You'll be sacked in 2 years. He's got that. He's just got that CV now, hasn't he, Daniel Levy? And I think it's not a very good CV. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's a horrible man, and he's done fantastic for the business side of the club.
Yeah,
he's second to none. His acumen shows that. So, but what he does do is interfere with the football, and I think if he took a step back from that, concentrated on the business side, and let somebody else do the football, a football person do the football, then I think we would have a really good chairman. But it just doesn't seem to have that balance between the football and the business, and I think that's what's that will put a lot of big managers off. And Brendan Rodgers, certainly, why would you leave a team that you've got into the Champions League and an FA Cup final, regardless whether he wins it or not, to come to a team where he knows he needs a rebuild, but is he going to get the money, and is he going to get the players that he asks for? I doubt it, very much doubt it.
Yeah, can't see it.
Rolf, let's come to you. Josh writes on screen now, we need a director of football. Do you think that do you think that will happen? Do you think Daniel Levy will change things around in the summer and perhaps do things differently for next year?
That's a good question. We've done it before. It didn't work for us very well. In fact, when we had one of the person in the past, he basically actually was undercutting Spurs, getting ready for his next appointment at Chelsea. So I think Daniel's very wary about that situation. The other problem is that what Spurs at least had a problem is that the individuals that the director of football, basically scouting manager or whatever you want to call it, they were picking players that the manager didn't want or like. And so we got saddled with a bunch of players that turned out to be disasters, which Spurs had to pay for. So I think Daniel's just a bit wary. In an ideal situation, it would be great that you have a director of football, but that allows the manager to make the final call, yes or no. He can find them and they can set up the deals, but still the manager has final say-so that they know what they're getting, not just dump with players that they got to somehow integrate into the team. And what's the point?
Yeah. I always think that with the director of football thing, they go and they sign the player and say, yeah, guaranteed first team football. And you know, in my mind, only a manager or a coach knows the players that they want or need that can balance a team.
Yeah.
And so when they bought some, you know, director of football promised someone first team football, and the manager's like, well, you know, he doesn't really fit our style, or he doesn't fit how I want to play, he benches him. The player then gets onto his agent. The agent's then getting onto a director of football. You promised me first team football. Director of football goes to Daniel Levy. Daniel Levy then sacks the manager. So I think we've got our director of football, which is the bald-headed man that sits up in the box. And he's not working with him.
David, what did you make of Steve Hitchin on the Amazon documentary when he came out and said that he hates the January transfer window? Because even Barry writes a comment here, isn't Steve Hitchin the equivalent of a director of football? What have you made of his time at Spurs?
I think he's been a bit of a failure, personally. I don't think he's that. It just doesn't seem, our scouting doesn't seem good, does it? You when you look and you think like Sanchez, you think, oh yeah, he's going to, you know, shows promise, he looks good, and it turns out to be a flop. And we've had so many of them. Aurier, all right, Aurier spells and he'll play good, he'll play well, but I just don't think he's good enough. And he would have been the first person I would have sacked before Jose if I was Daniel Levy.
Yeah,
personally, I don't know how the other guys feel.
How much was Sanchez? Was he 45 million?
42 million.
42, yeah.
I mean, that's scandalous, isn't it? Honestly, all jokes aside, 42 million for a man when he's on the ball looks so petrified and nervous. It's ridiculous, isn't it? And then you're talking about kids like Tanganga that are helping him out to kind of settle his nerves. Tanganga, you know what I mean? Rodon to help out Sanchez. He was 42 million. I mean, it's ridiculous, really, isn't it? You know, he's not getting any better. He's not improving like that. You know, we've had him long enough now. He's just got to go, isn't he? You know, but you're not going to get 42 million for him. What are you going to get? 20 million if you're lucky. You know what I mean?
I just wonder what we do in the training sessions, because you watch any team that we play, they challenge for headers, even under pressure. They'll direct it to their own players. But we just seem to go up like a bunch of salmon and just, you know, it goes up into no man's land and we lose the ball. We never seem to manage to direct a header to our own players. And that is anywhere on the pitch.
We're just not comfortable with set pieces, corners. That's it. You know, if there's like a free kick, corner, straight away, you're like, here we go. Do you know, you're not confident. You know what I mean? Apart from Toby back there, you're not confident with any of the others. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, Spurs have had a problem with set pieces for decades now.
Yeah.
Now,
it's never changed.
And it's not quite as bad as it used to be, but every time another team would get a corner near the end of the game, you knew they were going to score. And would score from a corner? Oh, it would be a total, you know, like winning the lottery. You know, we score.
You're right. It's not changed in 30 years. It's the same. It's always the same. It's like the Spurs mentality from set pieces and corners. I just don't understand it.
We went through that period where we just never had anybody on the post, did we? From a corner.
No.
And we always conceded. And you think, why is nobody learning and thinking, hang on a minute, let's put someone back on the post.
Someone on the post. It's bizarre. It's bizarre.
And different players and different managers as well. Rolf, let's come to you. Nigel writes on screen now, new man needs to have Levy agree to replace at least 8 or 9 players and allow him to get on with football operations on his own. Do you think that Daniel Levy will trust anyone with that?
I don't know if about the trust is so much there, but it will come down to the finances, and Daniel Levy probably doesn't have the bandwidth or the budget to do that. We need to, I would say, at least 5 players probably need to move. It's just, we mentioned Sanchez, Aurier. Those are 2 at the top of my list. I think they're woeful. I suspect probably, unfortunately, because I like Harry Winks as a person, but I think his time is up. Sissoko, his time is up. I mean, Pochettino made him look good because he integrated into the team, but otherwise he can't fit into anything else because he can only play a very one-style football. So I think he needs to move on. So that's 4 right there for you. And there's probably others that come to your mind, but I think that there's serious issues there.
I'd throw them 4 in, and I don't know how you guys feel about Dyer, but I'd probably throw Dyer in there as well, to be honest with you. Not seen enough off Dyer. I mean, and he's come
Do you
out.
know what's scary though, Gary? What's scary? You ask any Tottenham fan, who would you like to get rid of?
Yeah.
We all just start reeling names off. Do you think other fans do that about their clubs?
I don't know. I mean, they must do. I mean, look, if you look at Liverpool, I mean, their forwards at the moment have been awful, haven't they, really? When you think how they were knocking goals in and to where they are now, they're not great. But I don't think, any other fan of the team is in a position where we are with no manager, not knowing what manager we're going to get and getting rid of half the team. But this is just Tottenham. It's always been the same. Even when we did win the odd trophy, Chris, we was always going through dramas and God knows what in the league. It's always been the same with Tottenham. It's just they never have a tight ship and have things organised. It's just a nightmare. I mean, I think the Mourinho thing just says it all. How can you bring in Jose Mourinho, serial winner, wins everything, and he's with us for 18 months, and it's completely toxic and just ends as bad as it did. And I think Rolf said something about because he signed for Roma, we don't have to pay the full amount. But I think Daniel Levy still does have to pay him quite a fair bit for the first,
some,
but not as much. But we're in a position now where we got Jose Mourinho. We sacked him a week before the final. I mean, all of that doesn't bug me as much as why Ryan Mason didn't start Gareth Bale. I think that bugs me more. That's played on my mind more why Ryan Mason didn't start Gareth Bale in the final than Jose.
My biggest one was starting Winks, because the moment I saw Winks, my first comment on social media was Harry Kane is going to be starved of any service.
Yeah, 100%.
And he was. And you found in the second half he dropped deeper and was playing more like a midfielder.
Yeah. That I think sacking Mourinho. I mean, I was like you, Chris. I wasn't Mourinho in or Mourinho out. He was our manager, so I backed him. But I think I was more annoyed about Bale not starting in the League Cup final than Mourinho being sacked a week before it. If I'm honest, I think that cost us more, and certainly bringing Mora off. So for me, that and don't get me wrong, it was great, the Sheffield United result and the Southampton result. But the Sheffield United result, I loved. It was over the moon. I was great goals and everything else. But it kind of annoyed me more so that he didn't start Bale in the final. Because he played so good. And I know it's Man City and I know it's Sheffield United and one's relegated and one's the best team and blah, blah, blah. But why are you starting Winks and not starting Bale? I don't know. Is that naivety? Is it because, like you said, Winks is his mate? I don't know. These are the questions I want answered. Do you know what I mean?
Well, bringing on Sissoko, I think we should have brought on Lamella. As far as creativity is concerned, much better. At least you drive across the field, you'd make them do something.
100%. 100%. Why would you bring on Sissoko instead of Lamella is just like madness, absolute madness. We needed someone to create something in that final, and we had no one. Look, we know Kane the Son didn't turn up, like in a lot of finals, but I'm sure they'll know if we'd have had Bale on there or even Endon Bale at 65-70%, he would have done more than Winks, wouldn't he?
Son was poor, unfortunately, in the final. That was not a good game. His passes were totally errant, and he just wasn't.
I think his head's gone, and I think it won't. I wouldn't be surprised if Kane was the player that stayed because of his price tag, and Son is the player that goes.
Yeah.
Well, David,
we know Son's governed by his dad, isn't he? So if his dad's been speaking to someone,
David, Rolf and Gary have had their say of players that they would like to see leave in the summer. It's your turn. I'm going to give you 10 minutes if you like.
I would say the same as Sissoko. Aurier's got to go. Sanchez, Davis. I still don't think Davis is good enough, but he's a good squad player, I think. And I think the same with Eric Dyer, a good squad player. So I think I'd be tending to keep Dyer and Davis. Winks I would get rid of because and don't again nothing against him because he's a nice guy, but for me what we're looking to achieve or what we're hoping to achieve as a football club is not, he would never walk into one of the top 4 clubs.
No.
And it's just, I've watched him Southampton. There was a point at Southampton, he got the ball, he gave it back, and then he sort of strolled and hid behind the Southampton player so that he couldn't get the ball back. He didn't sort of make space so that he could pick it up and then create anything. And I think that is what Carragher touched on when in the final, that he doesn't take responsibility. Not just him. A lot of the team don't take responsibility. But so going back to be Winks, Aurier, Sissoko, Sanchez. That's it, really. 4. I'd say 4.
Yeah.
Get rid of
Wow,
those.
you surprised me. I thought it'd be a lot more than that.
Who
Well,
would
David,
you think?
do you think that Harry Kane will stay beyond the summer?
Do you know what? I see this. I think he will because of the price. And again, it will be depending on who we get in. I think if Ryan Mason, if Poch comes back, then he definitely would stay. I think. He did say he was going to have a chat with Daniel in the summer, so it depends on the reassurances Daniel Levy gives him. But has he already given them to him before when he signed his 6-year contract? So we're going to build a team around you and then let him down. I don't know. But I think he's price tag, and because of the COVID situation, and not many clubs are going to have money. But you could also argue that if we get a hefty fine from the signing up to the Super League, that will come out of the club funds. I mean, the Cronkies, given their, I hate Arsenal, but they've come out and said the funds will come out of their own pocket. It won't come out of the club. Daniel Levy won't. That will come out of club funds, and we'll be hit with that. So maybe he would say, "Well, we're going to have to take a hit on Kane and let Kane go." But I'd like to think we'll get a decent manager, and he will say, "Right, this is my last year."
Yeah.
Ralph, let's come to you. We're now being linked with Jerome Boateng of Bayern Munich, Yannick Vestergaard of Southampton. Are these the sorts of players that you think that will improve Tottenham?
I don't know if it would make it any worse. I've seen Boateng over quite a few years. I'm not sure he's the answer to Spurs' problems. I mean, for that, if you're going to do that, you might as well have Jan Vertonghen playing for Tottenham, who served the team for many years. So I'm not sure if that's necessarily the right move there. Vestergaard, maybe. It's all very well playing at another team and doing well, perhaps like Doherty or others, but when you come to Spurs, the way that people fit or don't fit in, the expectation is different. We all as fans have had years of wanting to achieve certain things. Daniel Levy's expectation is certainly very high for the players. So I'm not too sure. We have to, though, somehow, and unfortunately I'm giving a problem and not the solution, but somehow create a very solid, steady defence and then build from there. Yeah, because it's this last year, I mean, you didn't know who was starting and what was going to happen. And I think that was part of the problem, that some of the players, they just lost confidence. You didn't know who was going to play next to you or who was going to play on your wings. It wasn't quite like when Pochettino would change the wing backs on a regular basis, but both doing the same type of things. Here you're changing the whole lineup all the time. And so nobody kind of knew what to do, what to call, where to go. And I think that's partially the manager's fault, not just the players. So it is the most critical thing that Spurs shore up their defence in a way that it's solid and is not just leaking in goals, and then you can worry about the rest of the team and get things going. Ironically, in saying this, at the final, the defence was the best, or the centre defence was the best thing about the whole game. Lloris, the goal, I think both Toby and Dyer had excellent games.
Yeah, we did.
They had to deal with, and we were lucky we weren't down 4-0 at half time, and it would have been. So. But that was the highlight of the game. The defence was solid.
Me because Daniel Levy said that the team is the engine of the club, and yet he wants to run it on cheap pattern parts and service it on cheap oil. It's almost, I don't know. Does he really know about football? Does he? I just don't get it. I don't get how he can say that and then just keep getting the rubber player. That's an interesting point,
David, because, of course, Mauricio Pochettino guided Tottenham to that top 4 place pretty much every year that he was there. It was a board requirement that we'd finish in the top 4. We got Europa League football this season. We might get Europa League football for next season. We're so used to being in that Champions League place and playing with the elite clubs in Europe, how much money is it going to take for Tottenham to be one of those top 4 clubs again?
Well, I think Gary, 300 million. I think the trouble what we've had is, while we've not spent, the other teams below us have spent. And you think the gulf that we created between us and Arsenal, West Ham even were still languishing. Everton were sort of there, mid-table, thereabouts, but they've started to come good. And then we go through a whole season where we don't buy and everybody else has bought. That just set us back so far. And Pochettino paid the price for it. Pochettino paid the price for it. Not for his own fault, I don't think. And Daniel Levy, Jose Mourinho, as Ralph was saying, swapping the back 4 constantly. But I genuinely thought he didn't really know who he had that was good enough as a back 4 and sticking with them.
I would agree. I would agree with you there. That's the problem, though. He should know. But after a while,
should, yeah. But when you've got a bunch of rubbish, you've got. I mean, let's face it. Reguilon's been good, but he's not been. His first few games, or the first few months that he was there, he was brilliant, wasn't he? He was bombing up and down. But he now gets up halfway and then turns back and goes back.
He didn't show up at the final.
No.
It was a weird moment with Reguilon, about 10-15 minutes, where it's like he lost his head. He was doing like really odd things and he just didn't know where he was on the pitch. And I remember he was looking at a ball rolling out and then he just watched it roll past him. And then it was a throw into City. And I was like, what are you doing? It was really bizarre. He just kind of lost himself in that final, which was a shame. Yeah, it was a shame, but they all did. I mean, Kane, Son, even, I don't know who it was. I think Højbjerg had a go at Reguilon when he was running through, but I thought Højbjerg should have just shot. And he sort of played it out of play and then sort of had a go at Reguilon. And that sort of summed it up, really, didn't it? You know what I mean? It was poor, no communication and just, everyone blaming everyone else. You know what I mean?
Do you know what, though, Gary? When you see Chelsea in the Champions League, of course, they've gone into the Champions League final as of Manchester City. Yeah. When you watch Man City and you watch Chelsea now, we look miles away from their quality, don't we? It pains me to say that, but we are miles away.
We are miles away. But the main reason for that is money, isn't it? Let's be honest about it. If you go back 50, 20 years, you look at Man City, they were struggling in Division 1, 2, whatever it was. It's all about money. Chelsea, Abramovich, it's all money, I mean, if you put the Man City manager and said, manage Burnley, would he do as good? He wouldn't. It revolves around money. Daniel Levy will never spend the money that the likes of Chelsea, Man City, and Man United do, and that's the problem. So Poch overperformed with the team that he had. It was a family unit, got them going, but unfortunately, we don't invest and don't have the money like City and Chelsea, and that's why.
I don't mind that. I really don't mind that. What I would like to see is him going to whoever the manager is, whether it be Pochettino, Mourinho, whoever we get in next, and say, this is our budget. Who do you think we can get? Who would you like to get with the money that we've got? And then let the manager pick. Because how can you blame a manager if he's got a bunch of players that he didn't really want and didn't figure in his plans? I find that bizarre.
I mean, one player we didn't mention, he's been awful, was Doherty, wasn't he? I mean, that was a bad...
I think that's just because he's not playing how he should have been playing where Larry was at Wolves.
Honestly, like Chris, as the wife's a Chelsea fan, and I watched it with her last night. And look, I don't know partly if it's because Chelsea were good or Real Madrid was so bad, because let's face it, that Real Madrid team was slow. They were old. I mean, Modric, he's like 35, nearly 36 now. He's not the player he was. Hazard, you didn't notice in that game. They're a bit kind of old and washed up. And if you look at Chelsea, I just think to myself, if Chelsea do that in the final with Man City, they'll be in big trouble because they missed chance after chance after chance. And with Real Madrid in that game, you can get away with it. You're going to get away with that with City. I don't think you are. You know what I mean? So was it Chelsea were really good, or was it Real Madrid was really poor? I think it was probably more that Real Madrid was really poor, if I'm honest. Because they missed so many chances, Chelsea, didn't they? You know, I mean, I still thought Werner would miss that one when it came off the crossbar because he misses everything. I still thought he might head it wide. Do you know what I mean? So, but you're right.
Yeah.
You know, it's horrible when you're seeing Chelsea. They're in an FA Cup final and a Champions League final. You're thinking, you know, 2 years ago, at least we was in the Champions League final, and here we are, and we ain't got a manager. We're talking about 6-7 players we want to get rid of, and you know, we're hoping we're going to get Champions League, but realistically, we're looking like Europa. It's not great, but money, investment, and money. I think that's what we need a bit of, you know. But I think we do need a big name manager for that to happen. Because I think if Ryan Mason gets the job, is he going to get the funds he wants of Daniel Levy? Or is Daniel Levy just going to treat him like a puppet on the string? You know what I mean?
Well, you imagine, like, you know, if you're a top player and you know, Daniel Levy approaches you and says, oh, you know, come and play for us and I'll pay you X amount. Who's your manager? Ryan Mason. Who?
Yeah, that's it. You've not, you know, he's hit the nail on the head. That's it.
What's Ryan Mason won? Oh, nothing. He's a 39-year-old lad who's just come up and it's his first big job.
Yeah, 29.
29, yeah, not 39.
Yeah.
I think the other thing
he'll feel 39 if he takes the job, let me tell you.
I think the other thing we're missing here as well, we've never really replaced Moussa Dembele or
no, 100%.
Christian Eriksen. Both of them are very creative. I mean, Moussa Dembele is high. You couldn't get the ball from him. He was just so
brilliant.
Good. Christian Eriksen, when he was on form, his passing is like, you know, someone asked me a couple of weeks ago, if money was no option, who would you purchase? And I would say Kevin De Bruyne, outright.
Yeah.
That would change the whole fortunes of Spurs all round. His distribution.
Well, we could have changed both of them with one player in Jack Grealish.
Yeah. Well, as you can see, did we?
Yeah. But that football down to money again, wasn't it? And not wanting to pay enough and stuff. Do you know what I mean? You know,
but it was cheap, wasn't it? He was trying to fleece. Daniel Levy was trying to fleece a club that was struggling and in debt and wanted to offload, and then they get a new guy in and they say, no, we don't need to sell him now.
Yeah, silly.
Rolf, let's come to you. A comment on screen now. A massive rebuild is needed, and that won't take a season to do it. You know, I feel like a number of Tottenham fans are getting pretty impatient now about, you know, these constant rebuilds and, you know, wanting to sign new players. You know, you've got Harry Kane there. You've got some star players there. Now, how would you feel, you know, if you were Harry Kane, you know, trophyless again at Spurs? It must be very, very frustrating for him. It's frustrating for us.
You can see the look of disappointment, I think, on his face at some of the games. To get so close so far, he's obviously won an incredible amount of personal trophies, but he wants to win team trophies. And, you know, people don't really remember most of that. All that being said, you know, George Best, you know, never got to play for, you know, in the World Cup. But I think he's a bit demoralised. Whether he'll leave or not is another issue. I mean, he's happy with his family. He's got a good setup. You know, he's probably going to think to himself, am I going to be the Steve Perryman and get all these records with Spurs, or am I going to do something else? I'm in touch with Steve Perryman a fair amount, and you know, I watch his podcast, I mean, every week, and you know, he's kind of in a bit of two minds. What's going to happen? What's he going to do? Yes, you want to win trophies. To Steve Perryman's case, he won quite a few trophies with Tottenham, and hasn't won any. So it's a big temptation, and I guess he'll chat with his wife probably and the family and see what they think is the best thing to do. That's probably what it'll come down to. I think it'll be a family more than just a trophy thing, a family thing, you know, whether we should take a chance, because he'll have to do it fairly soon. You can't wait 3 years and do it. I mean, he can go to another club, but this is kind of his time to go. And also what the club can get the money for him that they would expect for such a top quality world-class player. So I think those are your two factors: what him and his family think, and what the club for him.
Yeah. Well, we're now going to come on to the preview. Of course, we've got Leeds United in the Premier League on Saturday, 12:30 p.m. kickoff. Gary, let's start with you. With a win for Spurs, we could go within reaching distance of the top four, only 2 points away. We could go back to fifth. Yeah. Ryan Mason is hoping to become the first ever manager or coach to win his opening 3 Premier League games in charge at Spurs. How do you see this game going?
Well, I mean, on paper, it's going to be an attacking game, isn't it? And very high scoring. I mean, I hope it's not an awful 0-0, but I mean, I think it's from as soon as that whistle goes, it's going to be an open attacking game. And I think, blimey, you'll be watching it like this because the defence with both teams is going to be absolutely awful. I mean, I think we are Leeds or Leeds are Tottenham. I don't know who's worse, if I'm honest with you. Although Leeds always get praised, even though when they get absolutely hammered, everyone still says, oh, it's great watching Leeds. Leeds play great football. But when Tottenham get hammered, they just say, yeah, same old Tottenham. Yeah, they need to strengthen their team. So that annoys me. But I do think it will be a high-scoring game. And I do think Tottenham will win it. That I'm certain of. There's going to be a lot of goals in it. I think we'll win that 4-2. And I think there'll be a lot of goals. And there'll be a lot of defensive mistakes. And it will be high scoring. And we'll get the same start with Bale, Son, Kane, Dele as well. And I think he'll stick with that. Yeah, that's what I think.
You think all four of them will play again?
I think so, yeah. And I think Dele will have a better game as well. Because I still think there's a player there. I know people are coming down on him and stuff, and some of it's rightly so criticism, but I think he just needs a few more games. He's not had many games, let's be honest. And there was flashes of him with Sheffield United. He did a few nice little moves, tricks, turns. He looked all right to me. He wasn't amazing, but I do feel the Leeds game would be a perfect game for him because I think he'll get a lot of space and freedom in the middle of the park and going forward because Leeds defending is probably worse than Tottenham's. I mean, it probably is on paper. They're both awful. So I think it's a perfect game for Dele and Bale. I was a bit concerned with Kane in the last game. He's very quiet, wasn't he? Very quiet in that Sheffield United game. And his facial expressions and stuff, I don't know. Maybe you're just overthinking something. I'm thinking he's got other stuff on his mind, but maybe he's just not fully fit. But going back to Leeds, high-scoring game, Tottenham will get all 3 points, 100% certain of it.
David, before I come to you, now Leeds are without a win in all 9 Premier League home fixtures this season against teams currently above them, drawing 5 and losing 4. And all of Gareth Bale's Premier League goals this season for Spurs have all been scored at home and all against teams currently in the bottom 8 of the table. How do you see this game going?
Well, that's a worry there straight away because as soon as somebody comes out with a stat like that, we're going to get banned. Especially because I can generally don't knock my tripod dog. I can see him actually starting with Winks again and trying to be defensive because he'll know that they're going to come and attack us. And I think if we go with Winks, I can't see anything more than a draw.
Oh God!
And it'll be something like 3-3 or something like that. But I think if he doesn't go with Winks and he starts, like yours, I actually said that against Sheffield Wednesday that Dele had a good game. In that, considering he hasn't played, he put himself about. He was working hard. His touches weren't brilliant, and he gave the ball away, but he won a few duels. But I got called a retard for that. I thought
he had an alright game. He had an alright
game. Ali played well.
Yeah.
And so I think, go with them again. That 4, and then I would definitely have Tanguy on. He'd be playing instead of Winksy for me.
Yeah.
And then I would probably go with Tanganga, Rodon, and Toby, and Reguilon.
Yeah,
would be my back. I think with that, if we had that, I think we could.
We have to win this game, though, David.
We have to, yeah.
Have to.
Yeah, but I just wonder whether Harry Winks is going to think. Was that he's thinking of playing Winks and not Bale against City because he knew that they were going to come at us, and he tried to do the Mourinho thing. Oh, let's sit back and weather the storm. But we know that Winks hasn't got that range of pass. I mean, people keep saying, these pundits, oh, he's a baller. But I'm very rarely, he'd do the odd 1 or 2 for a game, but he's never consistent with it. So, yeah, without Winks, I think we win. With Winks, I think the best I could see is a draw. And not saying it's because of Winks, and I don't like Winks and his crap. I just think it's just the way that he plays. He's always thinking backwards, facing our own goal most of the time.
Yeah. You're right, though. You're right. It's a tough one because Dombele's not featured since Ryan Mason's come in it. But I mean, right, Dombele's last few games though, he wasn't good, and he's still got to last the full 90 minutes. And he does go missing in games, and he sort of goes over and gets up slowly. But he's got that magic in him that Winks just doesn't have, you know. So I think out of the two, and especially with Winks' performances, you've got to put Dombele back in there. I mean, he's a record signing, for God's sake. You know what I mean? You've got to play him. You know, even if he only lasts 60, 70 minutes. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
Ralph, let's come to you. You praised the defence in the cup final. Of course, Eric Dyer played. Eric Dyer is set to make his 200th Premier League appearance. Do you think that Ryan Mason will go with the same team that beat Sheffield United 4-0?
It's a good question. I think there's a good chance of it. It's an attacking style team. I've looked at what the bookies have put on it, and they tend to often be fairly correct. They give a slight edge to Spurs or a high scoring draw. So it's amazing to me how often that they're correct, even though I might think something differently. So I take notice of that. I think it would be good, something similar to that, having the same lineup that we had against Sheffield United. I certainly like to have, if you're going to have Bale and Dele, I like them to start early in the games, not come on late. That's a big problem with the final. They came on too late to make any difference whatsoever. Yeah. Just, to me, it was wasting the time. They need to bed into the team and get that flow going. I mean, Bale wasn't really coming alive until, really the second half, and then he really showed his promise there. Yeah, it was excellent there. Son had a pretty good game. I mean, he was unlucky he didn't get that other goal. That was off.
Ruled out.
Yeah. So, I think something along those lines would be good. They're confident, and something similar anyway, pretty much similar to that format.
Ralph, what have you made of Leeds United's season back in the Premier League this season? And of course, Bielsa as manager. We spoke about managers earlier. Is Bielsa someone that you'd be interested in Tottenham perhaps having?
I've followed their fortunes from afar. I have a good friend who's a Leeds fan, so we chat a bit, and we have this season. I think he's amazing. I mean, but he's very much a person that likes to control every element of everything he thinks he can control, including, making it easier for the players to find parking and running stuff. I don't know if you've seen any of the documentaries or things about him. Is he the right type of person to manage the Spurs team or players? I'm just not sure, because he basically has to have carte blanche, and I don't know if Daniel Levy will let him have that. It's interesting. So I'm a bit ambivalent about it, not because I don't like him. I think he's good, and he's got a very dedicated way of playing, and he's been quite successful. I'm just not sure how that would work with the Tottenham players. So that would be the litmus test. It's one thing taking a team from the lower divisions where, you just haven't believed, and he takes the great heights, which he has. There's another team coming into a place where the players have had now this would be their third change, and I don't know how long. It's a little bit of a different philosophy. So I'm somewhat on the fence on that. I'm not against it, but I'm not like saying, oh yeah, I really want to come.
Well, last question for you, all of you. Score prediction for Saturday against Leeds. Where will Spurs finish in the Premier League at the end of the season? And who will be our manager at the start of next season? I'll kick things off. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw at Ellen Road. I think the Spurs will finish 5th in the Premier League. And I'm hoping that it'll be Brendan Rodgers that will be our manager at the start of next season. Gary?
4-2 to Tottenham. 6th place, like I said, all season. And this is a tough one. I think we're going to get Conte. I think we'll get him.
Is that who you want?
Yeah, it is who I want, because I think he's won before. He's got previous, and I think he's good with the players and the fans. You'll remember him jumping into sports and stuff like that. And I think you go from Mourinho, who's very negative and, sort of like almost turns players into victims, and you know what he does. And I just think going from him to Conte will just be like, vroom. And I think it would be a brilliant replacement. I know he's ex-Chelsea again, but I would rather him than give Ryan Mason the job.
David, what about you?
I'm pretty much the same as Gary. Actually, I think we'll finish 6th. I think Saturday is going to be a 3-3 draw, and I would go with Conte. Out of all of them that's available, or you would think is available and more attainable, I think would be Conte rather than Brendan Rodgers. As much as I'd like Brendan Rodgers, I can't see him leaving Leicester for us in the state that we're in at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if he says, "Oh, we're going to keep Kane."
Yeah.
As you know, I'd like Nuno to come, but I doubt if it's going to be him. So I'm just not sure some of the names that have been mentioned. I even like Roberto Martinez. I think his name was mentioned in the mix too, from what I was seeing. But and I thought he might actually do quite well at Spurs. It's quite a positive influence. But as far as the score is concerned, I think it will either be 2-2 or 3-2 to Spurs. It's going to be very close on that. I'm sort of on the fence there. I definitely do think we're going to see at least 4 goals, just the way that both teams are. And both teams have leakiness in the back, so that's probably a good indication of what might happen. But I'm certainly hoping that Spurs edge it.
Rolf, while you're on this channel, please do promote Los Angeles Spurs, because when I come over a couple of years ago, you guys really looked after me, made me feel very, very welcome, which I really, really appreciate. But tell everyone how they can find you guys.
Yeah, it's very easy to find us, www.laspurs.com, or just look up the LA Spurs or the official Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Club in Los Angeles on Facebook. We're on Twitter as well. You know, there's no fees to join us if you want to be part of us. We pretty much go to every single game that is on, no matter what the time is, barring COVID, regulations or what we have, but we've pretty much done that. Yeah, that's it. You got it. That's it. We're all like the back of my hat here. See the LA Spurs there.
Yeah.
We officially started in 2005. That's when we became registered. First Premier League supporters club in Los Angeles. The largest Tottenham Hotspur supporters club in the United States, out of the 68 or whatever that they have. Yeah, we've got a great, fantastic group of people here. About, I would say, 35-40% expats like myself, and the rest are from the United States, and many people from around the world, as Los Angeles is a cosmopolitan place, just like London and other cities. So we have fans from every country, walk of life, background. So it's fantastic, and we have a great fan group. Excellent. Yeah,
it really is. It really is. As I say, when I went out there a few years ago, you guys really looked after me. So I'll never forget that.
One last shout out, I should say, to our current chairman, Mr. Brian Moore. He's done a fantastic job overseeing, managing, and helping us. And I just want to mention his name because he's our current chairman. We've got 6 on the board, which I'm a member of, but he's our chairman. So I'll at least mention his name to everybody, Brian Moore.
Yeah, please do say hello to him for me as well. He's been on this channel a couple of times, and of course Graham, who you mentioned earlier as well. Yeah. What an entertainer he is.
Yes, he is. Yeah, Graham Rudge. He's definitely known throughout the world. I actually had to see him last night, so we had a very nice time together. But he and I were the first 2 that connected back in the late 90s as far as supporting Spurs, and then we just kind of grew from there. So yeah, he's definitely a legend in these parts.
Absolutely. Well, Rolf, thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Nice Gary, thank you very much as always.
Always a pleasure, Chris. You know that, mate. Always a pleasure.
And David, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much for having me, Chris. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Let's hope the Tottenham get the 3 points on Saturday against Leeds United, climb up that Premier League table, and might give us a little bit of hope to finish top 4 at the end of the season. Thank you very much, guys, and come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.